At 6:12 on a cold November morning, Officer Ryan Cole believed he had pushed an unknown black homeless man away from a federal building. By sunrise, that man was dead. By 8 o'clock, a convoy of black government vehicles had surrounded the police station. And before noon, Ryan would discover that the man he had killed was not homeless, not helpless, and not unknown. He was Colonel Marcus Holloway, one of the most decorated intelligence officers in modern American history. He had come to that building carrying evidence powerful men were willing to bury. And 30 years earlier, he had saved the life of Ryan's father. The morning began with rain so fine it looked like dust beneath the streetlights. Washington had not yet fully awakened. The sidewalks shone like dark mirrors. Delivery trucks moved through intersections with their headlights low, and the old federal buildings stood in silence beneath the gray sky. Officer Ryan Cole sat behind the wheel of Patrol Car 214, finishing the last hour of a night shift that had felt longer than most. He was 29 years old, broad-shouldered, clean-shaven, and exhausted. His uniform was neat because he had been taught that appearance was the first form of authority. His father had believed that. His academy instructors had believed it. Ryan had spent the last 7 years trying to believe it too. Beside him sat Officer Travis Bell, a veteran patrolman with 16 years on the force, and the weary confidence of a man who believed he had seen every kind of trouble. The radio cracked. Unit 214, respond to a suspicious person outside the Franklin Federal Annex. Male subject, possibly unhoused, refusing to leave the east entrance. Building security requests immediate removal. Travis reached for the microphone. 214 responding. Ryan looked at the dashboard clock. 6:03 a.m., 9 minutes before everything changed. They turned onto Hamilton Avenue and saw the man sitting beneath the stone awning of the Franklin Annex. He appeared to be in his late 60s. He was black, tall even while seated, with silver hair cut close to his head, and a weathered face marked by age, exhaustion, and something deeper than either. He wore an old military green coat over a dark sweater. A worn canvas bag rested beside his right foot. He was not sleeping. He was watching the entrance. A wooden cane lay across his knees, though Ryan noticed the man did not seem to need it. His back was straight, his hands were still. There was a discipline in the way he occupied the cold stone step, as though sitting there had been a deliberate decision rather than the last option left to him. A security guard stood several yards away beneath an umbrella. "That is him," the guard said as Ryan and Travis approached. "He has been here since around 4. I asked him to move 5 times. He says he is waiting for somebody, but he will not tell me who." Ryan looked at the old man. "Sir, you cannot remain here." The man raised his eyes. They were calm, intelligent, and far more alert than Ryan had expected. "I am aware of where I am, officer." "Then you understand this entrance must remain clear." "It is clear." "You have been asked to leave the property." "I have been asked by a private security employee to abandon a scheduled meeting at a public building." Travis gave Ryan a look that said the man was going to be difficult. Ryan tried again. "Do you have identification?" The man studied the nameplate above Ryan's badge. Cole, for the first time, something changed in his expression. Not fear, recognition. "Cole," he said quietly, "was your father named Thomas?" Ryan's shoulders tightened. "How do you know my father?" The old man looked past him toward the street. "We do not have much time." Travis stepped closer. "That was not the question. Show us your identification." The man's right hand moved toward the inside of his coat. Ryan reacted instantly. "Keep your hands where I can see them." The man stopped. "My identification is in my breast pocket. Do not reach for it." "Then how would you like me to show it to you?" Travis moved to the man's side. "Stand up." The man picked up his cane. Ryan pointed toward the canvas bag. "Leave the bag on the ground." "I cannot do that." "Sir, stand up and leave the bag." The old man looked directly at him. "That bag does not leave my sight." The words were measured, but Ryan heard defiance. Or perhaps he expected to hear defiance, and interpreted everything through that expectation. Later, he would replay the moment 1,000 times. He would remember the man's steady voice. He would remember the rain on the stone. He would remember that there had been no threat in Marcus Holloway's hands, only purpose. At the time, Ryan saw an unidentified man refusing a lawful order outside a sensitive government building. He did not see the colonel. He did not see the whistleblower. He did not see the man who had carried Thomas Cole through smoke and fire across half a mile of desert. He saw the coat, the bag, the skin, the refusal. Ryan reached for the canvas strap. The old man caught it first. "Do not touch that." Travis grabbed the man's wrist. Marcus pulled his arm back. It was a small movement, more instinct than resistance, but it transformed the air between them. Ryan stepped forward. "Stop resisting." "I am not resisting." "Let go of the bag." "You do not understand what is inside." "Then explain it." "I was instructed to deliver it to one person." "Who?" Marcus looked toward the entrance again. "Inspector Elena Torres." Travis laughed without humor. "There is no Inspector Torres listed in that building." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "Then she has been delayed." Ryan took hold of Marcus's upper arm. "We are moving away from the entrance now." Marcus remained planted. "You need to call the Department of Defense Inspector General's office. You can make calls after we identify you." "No, I cannot." "Why not?" "Because the people watching that building will know I have been intercepted." Ryan glanced at the empty windows above them. "What people?" Marcus lowered his voice. "The ones who sent you." Ryan felt irritation rise inside him. Nobody had sent him beyond a dispatcher doing her job. Nobody knew or cared which officer answered a complaint about a homeless man. At least that was what he believed. "Sir, I am giving you one final instruction. Release the bag and step away from the entrance." Marcus looked again at the nameplate. "Your father would tell you to listen before it is too late." Ryan's jaw tightened. "My father has been dead for 11 years. "I know." That answer struck him harder than it should have. "How?" Marcus took one slow breath. "I knew him in Kandahar." Travis pulled harder on his wrist. "Enough stories. Stand up." Marcus rose suddenly, not aggressively, but with more strength than either officer expected. The cane slipped from his knees and struck the stone. The canvas bag shifted. Ryan saw the outline of something rectangular beneath the fabric. A case. A device. Perhaps a weapon. He reached for the bag. Marcus turned to stop him. Travis shouted. The security guard stepped backward, and Ryan pushed Marcus Holloway with both hands. It was not the most violent act Ryan had ever committed. It was not even the hardest push he had delivered during an arrest. But Marcus was standing at the edge of the wet stone landing. His heel slipped. His body turned. For one terrible second, his eyes met Ryan's. There was no anger in them. Only sorrow. Marcus fell backward down 6 stone steps. His shoulder struck first. Then the back of his head met the lower landing with a dull sound that seemed too small to divide one life from another. Nobody moved. The rain continued falling. Ryan rushed down the steps. Marcus was breathing, but only barely. His eyes opened for a moment. He looked at Ryan and tried to speak. Ryan leaned closer. "What did you say?" Marcus's lips moved. "Your father." Then his eyes closed. The ambulance arrived in 7 minutes. Marcus Holloway died at 6:47 a.m. at St. Catherine's Hospital. By 7:10, the police department had already begun constructing the version of events that would be given to the public. An unidentified man had become physically uncooperative outside a federal facility. Officers had attempted to move him. The subject had lost his balance. Medical complications had followed. The language was careful, passive, almost gentle. No officer had pushed him. He had fallen. No one had taken his life. His life had ended. Captain Nolan Price arrived at the scene before the ambulance doors had closed. Price had been Ryan's commanding officer for nearly 3 years. He was 54, white, heavily built, with steel-gray hair and the habit of speaking softly when he wanted people to obey quickly. He separated Ryan and Travis. "Tell me exactly what happened." Ryan's hands were trembling. "He said he knew my father." Price did not react. "What happened physically?" "I tried to move him." He turned toward the bag. "I thought there might be a weapon." "Did you see a weapon?" "No." "Did he strike you?" "No." "Did he threaten you?" "No." Price stared at him. Then what happened? Ryan looked toward the bloodless stretch of rain-darkened stone where Marcus had landed. "I pushed him." Captain Price's expression hardened. "You guided an uncooperative subject away from a secured entrance." He lost his footing on wet stairs. I used both hands. You responded to a possible security threat. He was an old man. He was an unidentified subject with a concealed bag outside a federal building. Price moved closer. Listen carefully. You are in shock. Shock distorts memory. You will not speak to anyone until your union representative arrives. Ryan glanced at Travis. Travis stood near the patrol car, looking at the pavement. What did his body camera record? Ryan asked. Price's eyes remained steady. We are checking. Ryan looked down at his own camera. The small indicator light was dark. I turned mine on. I am sure you did. It is not recording now. Technical failure. Both cameras? Price put a hand on Ryan's shoulder. Go sit in my vehicle. Captain, what was in the bag? Price looked toward the canvas bag, which now rested beneath a clear evidence cover. That is no longer your concern. It should have been the moment Ryan understood something was wrong. Instead, he obeyed. At 7:42, the first black government vehicle stopped outside the station. Then a second arrived. Then 3 more. Agents in dark coats entered through the front doors, without waiting to be invited. They carried federal credentials, sealed warrants, and the controlled urgency of people who had been preparing for disaster, but praying it would not come. At 7:56, Assistant Chief Laura Bennett entered the interview room where Ryan was sitting with his union attorney. Her face was pale. Officer Cole, you are being placed on immediate administrative leave. The attorney leaned forward. On what grounds? Bennett ignored him. Your badge and service weapon. Ryan slowly removed them. Who was he? He asked. Bennett's eyes flickered. We are still confirming his identity. You already know. She did not answer. Outside, voices moved through the hallway. A door opened. Someone said the words, White House Military Office. Ryan looked up. What is happening? Bennett left without responding. At 8:14, Inspector Elena Torres of the Department of Defense entered the evidence room and demanded the canvas bag. Captain Price told her it was part of an active local investigation. She handed him a federal seizure order signed by a judge before dawn. Price read it twice. Then he smiled. It was a very small smile. Interesting timing, he said. Torres was 46, with dark hair pulled into a simple knot and eyes that missed very little. The order was prepared last night, she said. Colonel Holloway was supposed to enter the building at 6 this morning. Colonel? Price allowed surprise to enter his voice. Torres watched him carefully. You did not identify him. He had no identification visible. He carried credentials in his inner pocket. We had not completed the search. He also carried a coded Department of Defense emergency card. Perhaps your colonel should have presented it. Perhaps your officers should not have killed him before he could. The room went silent. Price's face became still. You should be careful with language like that. I am careful with everything, Captain. She opened the bag beneath the eyes of 2 federal agents and 1 police evidence technician. Inside was a sealed metal case, a small digital recorder, a leather notebook, 2 flash drives, a folded military photograph, and a row of classified transport manifests connecting a private defense contractor to weapons that had never reached the American units for which they had been purchased. The contractor was Aegis Meridian. Its chief executive was Victor Hale, a former Deputy Secretary of Defense who had built a fortune on government contracts, national television appearances, and speeches about patriotism. The documents suggested that Aegis Meridian had been billing the government for medical equipment, vehicle armor, and communication systems that either did not exist or had been replaced with cheaper materials. Hundreds of millions of dollars had disappeared through shell companies. Soldiers had been sent into danger with equipment that failed. Several officers who had tried to report the failures had lost their careers. 2 had died under suspicious circumstances. Marcus Holloway had spent 3 years gathering proof. He had trusted almost no one. Elena Torres had been one of the few exceptions. The meeting at the Franklin Annex had been arranged through an encrypted channel. Marcus believed Aegis Meridian had compromised officials inside the Pentagon, the Justice Department, and at least 2 local law enforcement agencies. He had refused protective custody because he believed the security teams themselves might have been infiltrated. Instead, he had dressed as a man the city would ignore, an old black man in a worn coat. He had been right about being ignored. He had been wrong about surviving it. By 9 o'clock, news vans were gathering outside the station. A leaked police statement described Marcus as an unidentified homeless man who had behaved erratically near a secure facility. At 9:17, the statement disappeared from the department's website. At 9:23, the Department of Defense confirmed his name: Colonel Marcus Elijah Holloway, age 68, retired Army intelligence officer. Recipient of the Distinguished Service Cross, the Silver Star, 3 Bronze Stars, and honors the public would never learn about because the missions remained classified. A widower. A father whose only son had died years earlier. A man who had spent his final years teaching veterans how to rebuild their lives after war. Across the city, television anchors struggled to reconcile the first description with the second. Homeless man. Decorated colonel. Suspicious subject. National hero. The truth was that Marcus had been neither the saint the government would soon make him, nor the threat the police department had first suggested. He had been a human being. That should have been enough. At 9:40, Nia Holloway received a phone call at the elementary school where she worked. She was 35 years old and taught 4th grade history in Baltimore. She was Marcus's only niece, though he had raised her after her mother died when Nia was 12. To her, he had never been Colonel Holloway. He had been Uncle Marcus, the man who burned pancakes on Sunday mornings, listened to baseball games on an old radio, and sent handwritten birthday cards even when they lived under the same roof. She knew he had served his country. She knew he had carried secrets. She did not know he had spent 3 years building a case against one of the most powerful defense companies in America. When Inspector Torres told her he was dead, Nia did not cry immediately. She sat at her desk while children's drawings of the American flag hung on the wall behind her. How? She asked. There was an encounter with local police. What kind of encounter? Torres paused. He fell down a flight of stairs. Nia closed her eyes. Did he fall? We are investigating. That was not my question. Torres had spent her career questioning generals, contractors, and intelligence officers. She had learned how to use silence as a tool, but she could not use it against Nia Holloway. One of the officers pushed him. Nia's fingers tightened around the phone. Why? They said he refused to leave the building entrance. He was meeting you. Yes. You were not there. No. Why? Torres looked through the station window toward Captain Price, who was speaking to a federal attorney. My driver received the wrong access instructions. We were sent to the west security entrance. By whom? We do not know yet. Nia's voice became quiet. You do know. Torres said nothing. My uncle used to tell me that when officials say they do not know, it often means they know exactly where they are afraid to look. Torres swallowed. He was right. Nia arrived at the police station shortly after 11. By then, Marcus's photograph had appeared on every major network. One image showed him in uniform 20 years earlier, standing beside a military transport plane. Another showed him kneeling next to a wounded soldier in Afghanistan. A third showed him receiving a medal from a president whose name no longer mattered as much as the dignity on Marcus's face. Ryan saw the photographs on the television mounted in the interview room. He stared until his vision blurred. The old coat was gone. The silver hair was darker, but the eyes were the same. Calm, watchful, sorrowful. His union attorney, Paul Dempsey, muted the television. You need to stop watching. Ryan did not look away. He said he knew my father. That does not change the legal facts. What are the legal facts? You responded to a security complaint. The individual resisted your attempt to move him. He fell. I pushed him. Dempsey leaned closer. You made physical contact during a lawful detention. I pushed him down the stairs. You did not intend for him to fall. I did not know who he was. Dempsey's expression sharpened. That sentence will destroy you. Ryan finally looked at him. Why? Because it suggests you would have treated him differently if you had known he was important. Ryan felt something cold move through him. Would he have? If Marcus had worn a decorated uniform, would Ryan have grabbed him? If a row of medals had covered the old sweater, would Travis have laughed? If a government vehicle had waited at the curb, would they have called him uncooperative? Ryan knew the answer, and it made him sick. At noon, Captain Price entered the room. He dismissed Dempsey and closed the door. "This situation is moving quickly," Price said. "A man is dead. A complicated man carrying complicated material. He was a colonel. He was a subject who refused an order." Ryan stood. "He knew my father." Price's face gave away nothing. "He may have read your nameplate. He knew my father's first name. Your father's obituary is online. He knew Kandahar." Price sighed. "You are searching for meaning, because the alternative is accepting that a tragic accident occurred." "Was it an accident?" Price looked at him for a long moment. "What are you suggesting?" "My camera was on. The system shows a failed activation. Travis's camera failed too. That happens. At the same time, equipment does not care about coincidence." Ryan stepped closer. "Who called in the complaint?" "Building security." "Which guard?" "Why does that matter?" "Because the guard was waiting for us before we arrived. He kept looking at the old man's bag." Price's voice dropped. "You are suspended. Go home." "What was the guard's name?" "Go home, Ryan." It was the first time Price had used his first name. Not Officer Cole. Not Cole. Ryan. The familiarity felt less like kindness than warning. As Ryan left the station through a side door, reporters shouted questions from behind metal barriers. "Officer Cole, did Colonel Holloway threaten you? Did you know he was a decorated veteran? Was race a factor? Why were the body cameras not recording?" Ryan kept walking. Then one voice rose above the others. "Would you have pushed him if he had been wearing his uniform?" Ryan stopped. For 1 second, the world became silent. He turned toward the reporters but could not see who had asked the question. Cameras waited. Microphones lifted. Dempsey took his arm. "Do not answer." Ryan climbed into a waiting car and left. Nia watched from the station steps. She had expected to feel rage when she saw him. Instead, she felt something more complicated, and perhaps more terrible. He looked ordinary. Not cruel. Not monstrous. Just ordinary. The kind of man who might hold a door open for a stranger, coach a child's baseball team, or call his mother every Sunday. The kind of man who could make a fatal decision in 3 seconds and spend the rest of his life explaining why it had not represented who he truly was. Nia had no interest in his explanation. Her uncle was still dead. Ryan returned to a quiet apartment in Alexandria and found his mother sitting at the kitchen table. Margaret Cole was 62 and still wore her hospital identification badge from the nursing shift she had left early. She had seen the news. She did not stand when he entered. "Tell me it was not you." Ryan closed the door. "Mom, tell me." He lowered his eyes. "It was me." Margaret covered her mouth. For several seconds, the only sound came from the television in the next room. Then she said, "Marcus Holloway?" Ryan looked up. "You know him?" Her face had lost all color. She rose and walked slowly toward a cabinet above the refrigerator. From the back, behind old recipe books and a glass bowl nobody used, she removed a small wooden box. Ryan had seen it before, but had never opened it. Margaret placed it on the table. Inside was a folded American flag, his father's dog tags, several letters, and an old photograph. 2 soldiers stood beneath a desert sky. One was Thomas Cole, young and thin, with a tired smile. The other was Marcus Holloway. Ryan sat down. "No." Margaret began to cry. "Your father would not have come home without that man." Ryan picked up the photograph with shaking hands. "What happened?" "Thomas's convoy was attacked outside Kandahar. The vehicle caught fire. Your father was trapped, and the rest of the unit believed the ammunition was going to ignite." Margaret touched Marcus's face in the photograph. "Colonel Holloway went back alone. He pulled your father through the rear opening and carried him nearly half a mile while they were still under fire." Ryan could barely breathe. "Dad never told me." "He tried. You were young. Later he said the story belonged to Marcus more than it belonged to him." She removed one of the letters. Thomas's handwriting covered 3 yellowed pages. Margaret read a line aloud. "Marcus taught me that courage is not moving without fear. It is deciding someone else's life matters as much as your own." Ryan closed his eyes. He saw the stone steps. He felt Marcus's coat beneath his palms. He heard the old man say, "Your father would tell you to listen." Margaret's voice trembled. "What did you do to him?" Ryan began to cry. Not loudly, not dramatically. His shoulders folded, and the sound that escaped him seemed to come from somewhere he had kept locked since his father's death. I did not listen! That afternoon, Inspector Torres discovered the first break in the official story. The security guard who had called police was not a federal employee. His name was Dennis Weller. His credentials had been issued through a private subcontractor only 3 weeks earlier. Before that, he had worked for a consulting company owned by a subsidiary of Aegis Meridian. By 5 o'clock, Weller had disappeared. His apartment was empty. His phone had been abandoned at a bus terminal. His bank account showed a deposit of $75,000 made 2 days earlier from an offshore holding company. The original emergency call was also unusual. The dispatcher had been told the subject might be armed. That warning never appeared in the final incident log, but it had been transmitted directly to the mobile computer in Ryan's patrol car. Ryan had not remembered reading it. Travis had. He could be carrying a weapon, Travis admitted during a federal interview. That is what the screen said. Did you see a weapon? Torres asked. No. Did Officer Cole? Not that I know of. Then why did you treat Colonel Holloway as an immediate threat? Travis shifted in his chair. Because we had been warned. By a person paid through a company connected to the evidence Holloway was carrying. I did not know that. No, you only knew he was black, unidentified, and sitting where someone powerful did not want him to sit. Travis's face hardened. Are you calling me a racist? I am asking whether the warning mattered more because of the man you saw. That is not fair. Torres leaned forward. Colonel Holloway is dead. Fairness is no longer the standard. Truth is. Travis looked away. After several minutes, he admitted Captain Price had arrived unusually fast. He was there before the ambulance. Who notified him? I assumed dispatch. Dispatch records showed no call to Price. His vehicle's location data showed he had been parked 3 blocks from the Franklin Annex 20 minutes before the original complaint. Captain Price had not responded to the incident. He had been waiting for it. By evening, the police department announced that Ryan Cole had been suspended pending a federal civil rights investigation. Protesters gathered outside the Franklin Annex, carrying photographs of Marcus in his old green coat and his military uniform. 2 images of the same man, one ignored, one honored. On one sign, someone had written, "He should not have needed medals to deserve mercy." Nia stood at the edge of the crowd beside Elena Torres. She had refused invitations to speak. She did not want her grief turned into a slogan before she understood what had happened. He knew he was in danger, Nia said. Yes, Torres replied. Why did he go alone? He believed a security team would draw attention. He always believed he could carry everything himself. He carried more than most people knew. Nia looked toward the steps where her uncle had fallen. Did he suffer? Torres hesitated. The hospital said he was unconscious for most of the time. That was not my question. No, Torres said softly. I do not believe he suffered for long. Nia nodded, though the answer brought no comfort. A reporter approached, but Torres raised one hand and stopped her. Then Nia saw Ryan Cole standing across the street. He wore civilian clothes and no jacket despite the cold. For several seconds, he watched the candles, signs, and photographs. A few people recognized him. Angry voices rose. Ryan did not leave. Nia crossed the street before Torres could stop her. Ryan saw her coming and lowered his head. You are Nia Holloway. You know my name. It is on the news. My uncle knew yours before you knew his. Ryan flinched. Nia stopped several feet away. Did he tell you about your father? He tried. And you pushed him anyway. Ryan did not defend himself. Yes. Did he threaten you? No. Did he have a weapon? No. Did he insult you? No. Then why? Ryan searched for an answer large enough to hold what he had done. There was none. I thought I understood the situation. You saw an old black man in a worn coat and thought that was the whole situation. Ryan's eyes filled. Yes. Nia's voice remained steady. Do not cry in front of me as though your pain makes us equal. I know it does not. You go home tonight. My uncle does not. I know. No, you understand the words. That is not the same as knowing. Ryan nodded. She studied him. Are you going to tell the truth? I have. Not the safe truth. Not the legal truth your attorney approves. The whole truth. Ryan thought of Captain Price. The body cameras. The warning on the computer. The security guard. I do not know the whole truth yet. Then find it. Nia turned back toward the crowd. Ryan remained across the street long after she walked away. The next morning, he received a call from Captain Price. Meet me at St. Matthew's parking garage. Level 4. Come alone. Ryan almost refused. Instead, he placed his father's small digital recorder inside his coat pocket and drove into the city. Price stood beside a black sedan near the edge of the garage. You spoke to the niece, he said. She spoke to me. You need to stay away from her. Why were you near the Franklin Annex before the call? Price's expression did not change. Who told you that? Federal investigators know. Federal investigators believe many things. Who paid Dennis Weller? Price looked across the city. You are frightened and searching for someone else to blame. I am responsible for pushing him. Yes, you are. But I was sent there because somebody wanted him removed. You were sent there because a security guard reported a suspicious person. A guard connected to Aegis Meridian. Price turned toward him. Be very careful. Was my camera disabled? Price said nothing. Was Travis's? Your cameras malfunctioned. Both at the exact moment we reached the building? Price moved closer. You have one chance to survive this. You were given information about a possible weapon. Holloway resisted. You made a lawful physical intervention. He slipped. Tragic, but not criminal. And if I say something else? Then you become a white officer who killed a decorated black veteran on camera. There is no camera. Price smiled. There are always cameras, Ryan. The question is who controls what they show. The meaning settled between them. You have video. I have influence. Who are you protecting? Price sighed. You still think this is about one company stealing money. What is it about? Continuity. Stability. National interests you are not qualified to understand. Marcus Holloway understood them. Holloway was old, bitter, unable to accept that every institution requires compromise. He was carrying evidence. He was carrying a match into a building filled with fuel. And you arranged for us to stop him. I made sure a security concern was handled by officers who would act decisively. Ryan stared at him. You chose me. I knew you would follow procedure. You knew I would see him as a threat. Price's silence was the answer. Ryan felt the shame of it. Price had studied him. Not because Ryan was openly hateful. He was not. He had black colleagues, black neighbors, black men he called friends. But Price knew Ryan was impatient when tired. He knew Ryan trusted warnings more than explanations. He knew Ryan had been praised for taking control quickly. He knew Ryan would see Marcus's refusal as disrespect. He knew the old man's race, clothes, and location would complete the story before Marcus had spoken a full sentence. Price had not needed to order Ryan to kill anyone. He had only needed to arrange the pieces. What was supposed to happen? Ryan asked. He was supposed to be removed and his bag confiscated. And if he resisted, Price's eyes became cold. Then the situation would resolve itself. Ryan took one step backward. You murdered him. No, you pushed him. The words struck with surgical precision. Price opened the sedan door. Think about that before you decide which story to tell. Ryan returned home and listened to the recording 3 times. The audio was clear. Price had admitted enough to destroy his career, perhaps enough to send him to prison. But he had also spoken the truth Ryan could not escape. Ryan had pushed Marcus. Nobody had controlled his hands. Nobody had forced him to ignore the old man's words. A conspiracy had created the moment. Ryan had completed it. He called Inspector Torres. I have something you need to hear. Torres arrived with 2 federal agents. Before Ryan played the recording, he made one demand. No immunity. His attorney nearly shouted. You do not make that decision without counsel. Ryan looked at Torres. I will testify about Price, Weller, and everything else, but I will not agree to any arrangement that pretends I did nothing wrong. Dempsey stood. This interview is over. Ryan remained seated. No, it is beginning. Torres studied him. You understand that your statement may be used against you? Yes. You may face federal and state charges. Yes. You could go to prison. Ryan thought of Marcus on the steps. Yes. He played the recording. Captain Price was arrested before midnight. A search of his home uncovered encrypted communications with Victor Hale's private security director, records of cash transfers, and access codes used to interfere with police body camera uploads. The body cameras had not failed. Their live transmissions had been diverted to a private server controlled through a city technology contractor. The footage still existed. Price had believed he could decide when to release it. He had been wrong. The video showed the entire encounter. Marcus sitting quietly. Ryan demanding identification while refusing to let him reach for it. Travis escalating the physical contact. Marcus naming Inspector Torres. Marcus mentioning Ryan's father. Ryan pushing him. The fall. Then, while Ryan ran down the steps, the security guard Dennis Weller moved directly toward the canvas bag. Travis stopped him. That detail mattered. Without Travis's intervention, the evidence might have disappeared before federal agents arrived. The video also captured Weller speaking quietly into a hidden microphone. Package remains in place. Subject is down. Those 7 words transformed the case. Marcus's death had not been an accident that happened to benefit powerful people. It had been an anticipated outcome. Victor Hale appeared on television the following morning and denied any involvement. He stood before the American flag in a dark blue suit and spoke of his lifelong devotion to the country. He called Marcus Holloway an old friend. He praised his service. He promised full cooperation. Nia watched from her uncle's living room while sorting through his belongings. When Hale said Marcus's death was a national tragedy, she turned off the television. On the desk, she found a stack of letters tied with a brown ribbon. Most were from veterans Marcus had helped. One came from Thomas Cole. It had been written 11 years earlier, shortly before Thomas died from cancer. Marcus. There are debts a man cannot repay with money, medals, or words. You brought me home to my wife and son. Every birthday Ryan had after that day existed because you went back for me. He wants to become a police officer. I am proud of him, but I am also afraid. He believes good men always recognize the right thing in time. I have tried to teach him that most failures do not begin with cruelty. They begin with certainty. A good officer must leave room for the possibility that the person in front of him knows something he does not. If I am gone before he learns that lesson, perhaps you can remind him. Your brother, Thomas Naya, read the letter twice. Then she sat alone in the quiet house and wept for the first time. Not only for Marcus, for the terrible circle of it. Marcus had once carried Thomas Cole away from death. Years later, Thomas's son had become the instrument that ended Marcus's life. It was the kind of irony people called unbelievable in stories, because reality had no obligation to be gentle. Nia considered destroying the letter. Ryan did not deserve comfort from his father's words. But the letter was not comfort. It was judgment. 2 days later, she brought it to the federal courthouse, where Ryan was preparing to testify before a grand jury. He rose when she entered the witness waiting room. I found this in my uncle's house. She placed the letter on the table. Ryan recognized his father's handwriting immediately. His hands shook as he read. When he reached the line about certainty, he stopped. Nia watched him. He knew who you were, she said. That morning, on the steps, he was trying to keep a promise to your father. Ryan covered his eyes. I killed the man who saved him. Yes. The word was not softened. It should not have been. Ryan lowered his hands. Why did you bring me this? Because the truth should not belong only to people we believe deserve it. He looked at her. That sounds like something he would say. It is. Ryan folded the letter carefully. I am sorry. Nia's expression tightened. I know. I will spend the rest of my life being sorry. That may be part of your sentence. It is not part of my healing. Ryan nodded. I understand. No, you are beginning to. She left him with the letter. The grand jury testimony lasted 6 hours. Ryan described the encounter without protecting himself. He admitted he had allowed an unverified warning to shape his perception before he arrived. He admitted Marcus had not threatened him. He admitted the old man's refusal to obey had angered him. He admitted he had treated questions as defiance. He admitted that Marcus's race and appearance had influenced how quickly he assumed danger, even though he had not consciously thought, "This man is black, therefore he is dangerous." Bias had not announced itself. It had worked silently, arranging facts into the story Ryan expected to see. The prosecutor asked, "Did Captain Price order you to push Colonel Holloway?" "No." "Did anyone force you to use physical contact?" "No." "Do you believe Captain Price is solely responsible for Colonel Holloway's death?" "No." "Who is responsible?" Ryan took a breath. Captain Price arranged the encounter. Dennis Weller made a false report. Victor Hale's people wanted the evidence stopped. He looked toward the jurors. "But I pushed him." Victor Hale was arrested 3 weeks later while attempting to board a private aircraft in Virginia. Federal investigators had followed the money through 17 shell companies. They found recordings, emails, falsified contracts, and an internal memorandum referring to Marcus Holloway as the remaining exposure. Hale had never written the word kill. Powerful men rarely used direct language when indirect language protected them. He had instructed Price to prevent delivery through local intervention. He had authorized an emergency payment if the package was recovered. After Marcus died, Hale's security director had sent a message containing only 4 words. Unfortunate outcome. Problem contained. The problem had not been contained. Marcus had prepared for betrayal. The metal case held only part of the evidence. A second archive had been programmed for automatic release if he failed to enter a security code by 7 o'clock that morning. At 7:01, copies were transmitted to Inspector Torres, 3 federal judges, 2 major newspapers, and Nia Holloway. Marcus had known powerful men might stop him. He had made certain they could not stop the truth. The deeper investigators went, the larger the conspiracy became. Aegis Meridian had supplied defective vehicle armor to American forces overseas. Reports of cracks and structural weakness had been buried. Officers who complained were reassigned. Engineers were paid to alter test results. One transport vehicle had failed during an attack 2 years earlier. 3 soldiers had died. The official report blamed enemy fire. Marcus's evidence showed the armor had fractured before impact. One of those soldiers was a 24-year-old medic named David Torres, Inspector Elena Torres's son. That was why Marcus had trusted her. It was also why he had been cautious. Grief could sharpen a person's commitment to truth, but it could also be used to discredit them. Marcus had insisted the case be built on evidence no one could dismiss as a mother's anger. Elena had agreed. Now she understood why he had looked so tired during their final encrypted call. "This ends tomorrow," he had told her. She had replied, "Then tomorrow you stop carrying it alone." Marcus had smiled. "That is not a promise either of us knows how to keep." Elena would hear those words for the rest of her life. The trial of Captain Nolan Price began 8 months after Marcus's death. Ryan testified for 3 days. Price's attorneys portrayed him as a frightened young officer shifting blame to save himself. They were not entirely wrong. Ryan was frightened. He did want to survive. But survival no longer meant keeping his freedom. It meant becoming someone capable of telling the truth when the truth destroyed the person he had believed himself to be. The defense attorney displayed the body camera video frame by frame. "Officer Cole, at this moment, Colonel Holloway moves his arm. Correct? Yes. You interpreted that movement as possible resistance. Yes. You had received a warning that he might be armed. Yes. So Captain Price did not control your interpretation. No. He did not control your hands. No. He did not push Colonel Holloway. No. You did. Yes. The attorney turned toward the jury. No further questions. Ryan remained in the witness chair. The prosecutor stood. Officer Cole, does your responsibility erase Captain Price's? No. Does Captain Price's responsibility erase yours? No. What have you learned from that? Ryan looked toward Nia, who sat in the second row. That more than one person can be guilty of the same tragedy in different ways. Price was convicted of conspiracy, obstruction of justice, evidence tampering, and violating Marcus Holloway's civil rights. Because prosecutors proved he had knowingly created a situation likely to cause serious harm, he also received a lengthy sentence connected to Marcus's death. Victor Hale was convicted in federal court the following year. Aegis Meridian collapsed. Its assets were seized. A multi-billion-dollar compensation fund was established for service members and families harmed by the defective equipment. Congress held hearings. Officials expressed outrage. Agencies promised reform. New policies were announced. Yet Nia understood what Marcus had always known. Institutions loved reform after funerals. The greater test was whether they would listen before the next one. Ryan faced his own trial separately. His attorney urged him to fight the charges. The video showed Marcus turning toward the bag. The stairs were wet. The false warning had shaped Ryan's understanding. A jury might believe the death was accidental. Ryan refused. He pleaded guilty to criminally negligent homicide and a federal civil rights violation. At sentencing, the courtroom was full. Police officers sat behind Ryan. Veterans sat behind Nia. Reporters filled every remaining seat. The judge asked whether Ryan wished to speak. He stood. For months, he had written and rewritten his statement. In the end, he brought no paper. Colonel Marcus Holloway did not die because I woke up that morning intending to harm him, Ryan said. He died because intention is not the only thing that matters. He paused. I believed I was a fair officer because I did not think of myself as prejudiced. I believed I treated everyone the same. But when Colonel Holloway sat before me in an old coat, I did not see a citizen with a reason for being there. I saw a problem to remove. The room remained silent. He told me who he was meeting. I did not verify it. He told me the bag was important. I assumed that made it dangerous. He told me he knew my father. I thought he was manipulating me. Ryan looked at Nia. My father was alive because Colonel Holloway once entered a burning vehicle to save him. I am alive because my father came home. His voice weakened, but he continued. Colonel Holloway gave my family decades. I gave him seconds. Nia lowered her eyes. I cannot return what I took. I cannot ask his family to forgive me. I cannot call myself a good man and expect that claim to matter more than what I did. Ryan turned toward the judge. I accept the sentence. The judge imposed 12 years in federal prison, followed by supervised release and a permanent prohibition against serving in law enforcement. Some believed the sentence was too harsh. Others believed it was not harsh enough. Nia believed no number could translate Marcus's life into years behind bars. Justice was necessary. It was not resurrection. Before officers led Ryan away, Nia approached the prosecution table carrying a small wooden case. Inside was Marcus's Distinguished Service Cross. For a moment, Ryan believed she intended to give it to him. Instead, she held it where he could see. My uncle received this because he ran toward a man everyone else believed could not be saved, she said. Ryan's eyes filled. I know. No. Listen. He became still. This medal does not belong in your cell. His forgiveness does not belong to you. His heroism cannot be used to make your story beautiful. Ryan nodded slowly. Then why did you bring it? Because I wanted you to see what he chose when fear gave him an excuse to walk away. Ryan looked at the medal. Nia closed the case. That is what you must remember. She turned to leave. Ryan spoke behind her. Will you ever forgive me? Nia stopped. The courtroom waited. When she answered, her voice was neither cruel nor kind. I do not know. Then she looked back at him. But I will not let hatred turn me into another person who decides a stranger is less human than I am. It was the closest thing to mercy Ryan would receive. He understood it was not the same as forgiveness. Years passed. The Franklin Federal Annex was renamed the Marcus E. Holloway Center for Public Integrity. Nia opposed the decision at first. She did not want her uncle reduced to a brass plaque on the building where he had died. She changed her mind when the government agreed to include not only his military honors, but the final photograph taken from the security camera. Marcus sitting on the stone step in his worn green coat. No uniform, no medals, no official title. Beneath the photograph were the words, "His life had value before we knew his name." The center became a training site for federal investigators, military auditors, police leaders, and public officials. Every class began with the body camera footage. Not to humiliate Ryan, not to turn Marcus's death into entertainment, but to show how quickly assumptions could become actions, and how actions could become irreversible. Travis Bell resigned from the department. For months, he defended himself by saying he had not pushed Marcus. That was true. It was also incomplete. He had grabbed the old man. He had mocked his explanation. He had helped create the urgency that ended on the stairs. Eventually, Travis began speaking to police academies. He never called himself brave for doing so. "I am not here because I got it right," he told recruits. "I am here because a man died while I was busy believing I already understood him." Inspector Elena Torres was appointed to lead a new independent defense contract oversight division. The appointment came with a larger office, greater authority, and more enemies. On her desk, she kept Marcus's wooden cane. Investigators had discovered that it contained a concealed recording device. It held nearly 200 hours of conversations, notes, names, and reflections from Marcus's final year. One recording was personal. It had been made the night before his death. Marcus sat alone in his small apartment, speaking as though addressing Nia. "If you are hearing this, something may have gone wrong." His voice was calm. "I know you will be angry that I did not tell you everything. You have every right to be. I told myself I was protecting you, but protection and control can wear the same coat." There was a long pause. "I have spent my life studying danger. Most people imagine danger arrives loudly. Sometimes it does. But the most lasting dangers enter through ordinary doors. A rushed decision, a convenient assumption, an order nobody questions because questioning would slow the morning down." His chair creaked. "If I fail tomorrow, do not let them make me larger in death than I was in life. I was stubborn. I burned breakfast. I avoided doctors. I carried burdens that belonged to other people because I did not know who I was without them." A quiet laugh followed. "But I tried to leave each room with more truth than it had when I entered." Nia listened to the recording every year on his birthday. She never played the final minute for reporters. That part belonged to her. Marcus spoke of the first morning she had come to live with him after her mother died. She had been 12, frightened, and carrying all her belongings in a yellow suitcase. "You stood in my doorway and asked whether you were allowed to call the house home," Marcus remembered. "I told you home was not something another person gave permission to feel." His voice softened. "You became my home, Nia." The recording ended there. 8 years after Marcus's death, Nia stood before a graduating class of police recruits at the Holloway Center. She had left elementary education and created a national program teaching the history of public service, civil rights, and ethical decision-making. She did not show the recruits Marcus's medals first. She showed them the photograph of the old man on the steps. "What do you see?" she asked. A young recruit raised his hand. "An elderly man." Another said, "Someone who may need assistance." A third said, "A security concern." Nia nodded. "All of those answers come from one image. None tells you who he is." She moved to the next screen. Marcus appeared in uniform. The room shifted. Spines straightened. Faces became more attentive. "Now what do you see?" "A colonel, a hero, a decorated officer." Nia looked at them. The man did not change between the photographs. Your respect did. Nobody spoke. "The purpose of your training is not to teach you to recognize important people. It is to teach you that every person is important before you recognize anything about them." After the lecture, a recruit approached her. "My father was a police officer," he said. "He always told me hesitation could get me killed." Nia nodded. He was right. The recruit seemed surprised. "Then how are we supposed to slow down?" "You do not always have time to slow your hands," she said. "But you can train your mind not to fill every unknown space with fear." The recruit looked toward Marcus's photograph. "Did you forgive Officer Cole?" Nia had been asked the question hundreds of times. For years, her answer had remained the same. "I do not know." This time, she considered it differently. "I stopped needing him to suffer for me to remember my uncle," she said. "Perhaps that is one kind of forgiveness." Ryan Cole was 41 when he left federal prison. His mother waited outside the gate. Her hair had turned completely white. They embraced without speaking. Ryan carried one cardboard box containing letters, books, his father's photograph, and a copy of Marcus Holloway's final report. He had spent 12 years reading, listening, and learning how easy it was to turn remorse into another form of self-importance. At first, he had believed his suffering proved he was no longer the man on the steps. Over time, he learned suffering proved nothing. Change was not pain. Change was practice. In prison, Ryan had worked in the education unit. He helped men earn high school diplomas and wrote letters for inmates who struggled to read. He never told them he was trying to repay a debt. The debt could not be repaid. Good actions were not coins placed on a scale against Marcus's death. They had value only if Ryan did them without expecting the past to move. 6 months after his release, he visited the Holloway Center. He went early, before the school groups and officials arrived. Marcus's worn green coat was displayed inside a glass case beside his cane and military uniform. Ryan stood before it for nearly an hour. A voice behind him said, "The coat was always his favorite." Ryan turned. Nia Holloway was older now, with silver beginning at her temples. He had not seen her since the sentencing hearing. "I did not know," he said. He said uniforms made people listen to the wrong things. Ryan looked at the coat. He was right. Nia stood beside him. Neither spoke for a while. Finally, Ryan said, "I came to ask permission." "For what?" "A group of former officers asked me to speak about what happened. I have refused every invitation." "Why?" "Because I did not want to build a career from your uncle's death." Nia studied him. "That is a good reason. They believe hearing from me might prevent another officer from making the same choices. That may also be true. I will not do it without your permission." Nia looked toward the photograph above the display. "You do not need my permission to tell the truth. I need to know I am not using him." "You will be using his story." Ryan lowered his eyes. "Yes. The question is whether you use it to make yourself look redeemed or to make someone else pause before a life is lost. I cannot promise what people will think of me. No. I can promise I will never ask them to admire me." Nia considered him for a long time. "When you speak, begin with the old coat." Ryan looked up. "Not the medals?" "No. Tell them what you saw before you knew his name." Ryan nodded. "I will." As he prepared to leave, Nia opened her bag and removed a sealed envelope. "My uncle wrote this the night before he died. Ryan did not take it. Is it for me?" "No. He did not know he would meet you." "Then I should not read it. There is one line I think your father would want you to hear." She opened the envelope and read from Marcus's handwritten notes. "A man is not redeemed when others forget what he did. He is redeemed, if redemption is possible, when remembering no longer stops him from doing what is right." Ryan closed his eyes. "Thank you." Nia folded the paper. "This does not erase anything. I know. It does not mean I believe everything happens for a reason. I do not believe that anymore." "What do you believe?" Ryan looked at Marcus's old coat. "I believe terrible things happen. Then people decide whether the damage ends with them." Nia nodded. "That is closer." Ryan's first public speech took place at a police academy in Ohio. He walked onto the stage without introduction, awards, or uniform. Behind him appeared the photograph of Marcus sitting outside the Franklin Annex. Ryan turned toward the image. "This is Colonel Marcus Holloway," he said, "but I did not know that when I met him." He faced the recruits. "I saw an old black man in a worn coat who would not follow my instructions. I had information suggesting he might be dangerous. I had a partner reinforcing my assumptions. I had training that told me control must be established quickly." He paused. "Every fact I have just given you is true." The room was silent. "And none of those facts required me to stop seeing him as a human being." Ryan described the encounter. He did not show the video of Marcus falling. He ended the footage 1 second before the push. "That final second belongs to Colonel Holloway and his family," he said. "You do not need to watch a man die to understand that your decisions have weight." A recruit asked, "Were you racist?" Ryan had prepared for the question. "Yes," he said. Some faces shifted. Ryan continued. "I did not wake up hating black people. I did not use hateful words. I did not believe I was unfair. That made my bias harder for me to recognize, not less dangerous." Another recruit asked, "Do you think officers should hesitate in dangerous situations?" "I think officers should train until dignity becomes as instinctive as command." "What does that mean?" "It means you can give a firm instruction without deciding the person before you is your enemy. You can protect yourself without treating uncertainty as guilt. You can ask one more question when one more question is possible." Ryan looked again at Marcus's photograph. He gave me several chances to see him. I refused every one. Over the next decade, Ryan spoke at academies, churches, veteran centers, and community meetings. He was protested in some cities. Some families of people who had died during police encounters refused to attend. He understood. His presence could reopen wounds. He never complained. At every event, any payment offered to him went directly to the Holloway Fund, which supported children of veterans and scholarships for students studying public ethics. Ryan never called the donations restitution. Money could build schools. It could not rebuild one November morning. On the 20th anniversary of Marcus's death, the Holloway Center held a small memorial. Nia stood beneath the stone awning where her uncle had waited. The city had changed around the building. New towers rose across the avenue. Electric buses moved quietly through the intersection. Most of the young people in the crowd had not been born when Marcus died. Inspector Torres, now retired, sat in the front row with Marcus's cane across her lap. Travis Bell stood near the back. Ryan remained outside the gathering until Nia saw him and gestured for him to come closer. A student choir sang a simple hymn Marcus had loved. Then Nia stepped to the microphone. For many years, she began, people asked whether my uncle died a hero. She looked toward the two photographs displayed behind her, one in the old coat, one in uniform. I never understood the question. He lived as one. She spoke of his military service, but only briefly. Then she told the stories she believed mattered more. Marcus repairing a neighbor's furnace during a snowstorm. Marcus driving 6 hours to attend a former soldier's graduation. Marcus sitting beside Nia's bed every night for months after her mother died because she was afraid to sleep alone. Heroism is often remembered in moments of danger, Nia said. But it is built in ordinary moments, when a person decides another life is worthy of patience, protection, and care. She looked toward Ryan. My uncle's death revealed corruption. It changed laws. It ended careers and began new institutions. But I refused to say his death was necessary for those changes. Her voice strengthened. No innocent person's death should be called necessary simply because the living finally learned something from it. The crowd remained completely still. The lesson was available before he fell. He spoke it plainly. Listen, verify. Do not let fear finish a stranger's story for you. After the ceremony, Ryan approached the steps alone. The rain had begun again, soft and almost invisible beneath the streetlights. He stood where he had stood 20 years earlier. In memory, he saw Marcus before him. The old green coat, the canvas bag, the steady eyes. We do not have much time, Marcus had said. Ryan had once believed he meant the meeting, the evidence, the powerful men watching the building. Now Ryan understood the words differently. None of them had much time. Not Marcus, not Ryan. Not any person moving through the world believing there would always be another moment to listen, another chance to choose restraint, another morning to correct what had been done in haste. Nia joined him beneath the awning. You still hear him? She asked. Every day. Does it help? Sometimes. And the other times? It reminds me that help is not the purpose of remembering. Nia looked toward the lower landing. For many years, she had avoided standing there. Now she could see more than the place where Marcus died. She could see him sitting on the step before the officers arrived, holding the truth in an old canvas bag, refusing to leave because he understood that courage was not always loud. Sometimes courage looked like an elderly black man waiting alone in the rain while a nation slept. Uncle Marcus believed truth always found a way out, Nia said. Ryan looked at the building bearing his name. He was right. No, she replied. Truth does not find its own way. People carry it. She turned toward him. Sometimes they drop it. Sometimes they bury it. Sometimes they arrive too late. Ryan lowered his eyes. And sometimes they pick it up after it has cost more than it ever should have. The rain touched the stone between them. Ryan thought of the canvas bag, the hidden archive, the letter from his father. The body camera footage that had once been controlled by men who believed reality belonged to whoever possessed the recording. They had been wrong. Reality did not belong to the powerful, but the powerful could delay it. They could disguise it. They could force good people to fight for years before anyone admitted what had been visible from the beginning. Marcus Holloway had been a citizen waiting for a scheduled meeting. He had been unarmed. He had spoken calmly. He had tried to identify himself. He had deserved to live. Everything else, the medals, the secret missions, the government convoy, the White House calls, the evidence inside the bag, made the story larger. None of it made his life more valuable. That was the final truth Marcus left behind. A truth written not in classified files or federal verdicts, but in the distance between two photographs. One showed a man the country was prepared to ignore. The other showed a man the country had been trained to honor. They were the same man. They had always been the same man. And on the wall of the Marcus E. Holloway Center for Public Integrity, beneath the old green coat and the polished military uniform, visitors found one final sentence. It had been taken from Marcus's private notebook, written years before his death. It read, "The measure of justice is not how we treat a person after discovering his importance. It is how we treat him while believing he has none."